Hi, my name's Mark Cocker. I'm British heavyweight Olympic freestyle wrestling champion. I've also competed at Commonwealth Games in Delhi, where I placed 5th for both styles of wrestling, which are Greco-Roman and freestyle Olympic wrestling. I got into the sport about a long time ago now, 19 years ago as a kid. I was originally involved in jiu-jitsu and judo, and then one of my coaches asked me to go along to a local wrestling club, which was Bolton Wrestling Club, and I kind of fell in love with the sport from there. I think I got attracted to combat sports pretty much because, I always liked to kind of the physical aspect of sport. I like to play rugby. In a way, I like the solitude of a combat sport. I like the idea that you have ultimate control over what's going on. I think team sports are great, and obviously I'm part of a team and part of a wider team, but ultimately a combat sport, there's you and somebody else, and you are the decisive factor in determining the outcomes of what goes on, you know, while you're on the mat or wherever you might be. So there is a kind of bliss found in the solitude in some ways. I know after a stressful day at work or whatever it might be, it can almost be, you know, therapeutic and almost meditative to go on the mat on your own or with just you and a partner, get involved in the sport, start to train, and you know, I can assure you when you're involved in a combat sport and you're training or you're actually on the mat doing something, all your worries kind of fade away and all you're focusing on is the person in front of you, really. I think the characteristics that you need, or the key characteristics and the fundamental characteristics you need in combat sport, you've got to have a lot of self-belief, you've got to definitely be determined, you've got to be the kind of person who can shut negative thoughts out and focus on, you know, what you can control. You've got to be, like I said, you've got to be dedicated, you've got to be immensely kind of driven in a combat sport, because you're on your own for a lot of the time and it is you that steps out there on the mat on your own. You've definitely got to be driven. You can't be afraid, even though you might be coming up against someone who you know is very, very good or is world class at what they might do. You've got to be confident in what you can do. And you've got to be, I suppose probably the most powerful thing for me is that you've got to believe that hard work and determination can beat natural talent on its own, and that's been a massive thing for me. And I know a coach who I respected a long time ago said to me that, you know, skill is very much it's a learned ability to bring about a desired outcome, and that was like kind of when the penny dropped for me, in that although I might not be, or anyone might not be, the most technically gifted or naturally gifted, the penny dropped in that if you work hard, you know, you work harder than the guy you're facing. If you're training while they're not training, you can kind of, you know, you can overtake them and be better than them. When it gets tough, again, it comes down to self-belief. Quite often it is tough in wrestling or any kind of combat sport, and it's just kind of, it's having a goal, it's having both a short-term goal and a long-term goal, and just believing that you can do it. You know, I always am looking at the next competition, looking at how I can improve, and I'm always in competition with myself, and that's always been the kind of driver for me. It's not necessarily, although I am in competition with other people, it's constantly asking myself the question, you know, what is the best possibly that you can do with the resources that you have, with the time that you have, you know, and I'm always questioning myself, can I do better? And there are those days where you wrestle, or you're in the weights room and you're not lifting as much as you normally lift, or you're wrestling, you've had a bad day and you question yourself and you think, you know, can I really do it? But it's then waking up the morning after and forcing yourself back into the gym and, you know, really driving yourself to do better than what you've done the day before. Confidence in wrestling, I think confidence in any sport is massive. You have to be confident in yourself. I think there's a difference between confident and delusional. I don't think delusional helps. I think if you're delusional and you're overconfident, You know, it can sometimes mask or paper over cracks that you have in your own performance, but you do have to be confident that ultimately you can bring about the desired outcome that you want. You know, I'm always having conversations with myself, you know, particularly before matches, about, you know, telling myself that I can do it, telling myself that I will do it. You know, and sometimes that doesn't work out, and sometimes you tell yourself that you will do it, you'll tell yourself that you can do it, and it doesn't go your way, and you have a massive confidence dent in your confidence. But what I would say is that a good athlete, a kind of high class athlete, will bounce back from that. And you know, it's about being, you know, critical of yourself and evaluating your performances, but also doing it in a way which is, you know, you're your own critical friend, so to speak. So not being too hard on yourself, but at the same time balancing that up with, you know, what has gone well, but what do you need to do to improve. But definitely confidence. I mean, confidence is something that, you know, is massive, I would say, for any sports person. I mean, the two biggest memories I have from the Commonwealth Games was the opening ceremony, when I think there was around 60,000 people, and I just remember them announcing Team England was on its way in, and just a roar from the crowd. You're walking into this arena with these famous world-class athletes around you, there's 60,000 people watching you, and it really does make, you know, the hairs stand up on the back of your neck. I particularly remember walking around and seeing in one corner of the stadium some England flags and some messages from, you know, some friends and family of some of the other wrestlers that were there, and, you know, looking up to the big screen and knowing that you were being a part of an event which, you know, very, very few people will ever be part of. And then the second big one was, I remember, semi-final of the Commonwealth Games. For different reasons, there were lots of cheers, but I was walking out competing against a home athlete, which was an Indian athlete, and I just remember him walking out while I was waiting there to a massive roar of thousands of people all cheering for him, and of course very few of them cheering for me, but it was still you know, a real kind of massive experience to fight in front of so many people and wrestle in front of so many people in such an electric atmosphere. You know, that memory will stay with me forever. Before I go on the mat to compete, I mean, wrestling is one of those things you can be hanging around for an awful long time, particularly domestically, but also internationally as well, because there can be a number of, you know, there can be hundreds of bouts going on during a day. There's usually a kind of call sheet put up with your bout number and what colour you're in, and your coach will usually keep an eye on the bout numbers and will usually give you regular updates on how fast the bouts are progressing and how long, you know, kind of estimates and how long it'll be before you get there. Normally 5 or 6, well, normally at the beginning of a competition, even before the bouts start, you would have a very thorough warm up with your training partner to really open up your lungs and, you know, get that first sweat on and kind of blow the cobwebs off, so to speak. But around 5 to 6 bouts, maybe 20 minutes before your actual match is coming up, start to loosen up, start to warm up, start to go through some technique drills, start to open the lungs again. I suppose one of the interesting points in a wrestling match is that they tend to group weight categories together. So you have that dilemma of whether you should stay near the wrestling mat, and actually watch some of your other competitors beforehand, or you should just, you know, maybe sometimes that can be counterproductive and it's taking you off what you should be doing. I tend to just walk away, have a coach or one of the friends, training partners, who will video the other people so I can watch after my match. And I just like to find somewhere quite quiet. I don't like to be around too many other people. I like to, like I've talked about before, have that kind of conversation with myself about what I'm going to do, what the game plan is, you know, confidence building in myself, good warm up, drill technique of the things that I'm expecting to happen during the match. You know, think about plan A and then ultimately think about plan B as well in case things aren't going exactly as I wanted them to be. Mental toughness is massive, isn't it? And it ranges from, you know, being mentally tough when it's absolutely freezing in the morning and you've got to get up before work and go and train in a cold gym and have a cold shower afterwards and do a hard couple of hours of training before you even get to work. You know, that's mental toughness. Mental toughness is when you're dieting or you're on the lead up to a particular competition, and you know everyone around you is eating exactly what they want and you can't. You know, that's a form of mental toughness. I suppose the biggest kind of thing with mental toughness is, well, two things. It's getting through the training, because there's an awful lot of hard work and training that goes on to get you to, you know, the place that you want to be when you're competing. And sometimes, you know, that can be soul destroying, that can be very hard work, but it's being tough enough to kind of charge through it and keep going when your body's aching and you know, you don't feel too well, but you keep going. And then the second part of the mental toughness is actually on the day, you know, when you're competing, particularly at a big tournament like a Commonwealth Games or a national championships or a World or European championships, you have to be mentally tough, because you are surrounded by hundreds of other wrestlers who are all, you know, elite athletes, some of them in your weight class, and you can't let the occasion kind of overawe you. You've got to be in control, and I'm always a big believer in, you know, just looking at the controllables, looking at the things that you can control, and trying to shut out of your mind the things that you can't control. And you have to be quite tough to do that, because quite often you know, you see someone, a competitor, and it's quite natural to think, oh, is he bigger than me, is he stronger than me, is he faster than me? And you have to be quite mentally tough to block that out and just focus on the things that you can control. And of course, you know, when you're actually competing yourself, there are occasions where things aren't going quite your way, and that mental toughness is what gets you through and enables you to turn a negative situation into ultimately a positive situation. Otherwise you could crumble. I think a good coach is crucial. You know, a good coach is a very underrated. I think a massive development area overall in sport is coaches. Quite often coaches, I know particular coaches in my sport, well, the coaches that have made any kind of an impact on me in my career have all been volunteers, you know, people who don't get paid, and in a weird kind of way, someone who is there giving up their time for free, putting their time and effort into you and receiving no payment, you know, it rubs off on you that there's someone who's working hard and he's putting in the time and the hours with you, who is getting no kind of monetary you know, reward for doing it. It makes you almost think that you're not just doing it for yourself, but you're doing it for your coach as well, a little bit like, you know, when you're doing things for your family, the sacrifices that your family make, the sacrifices that your coaches make, and you feel that it isn't just for yourself, that you are kind of carrying the hopes of other people as well. But a good coach is crucial, because the coach, a good coach anyway, will often pick up things that you don't pick up, and a good coach will read you sometimes better than you read yourself. A good coach will see obviously the mistakes that you're making. They'll also be the first to point out the good things that you're doing, and sometimes athletes can be very self-critical and need that. They can also be the right people, or they are the right people, best placed people to push you beyond what you think that you can do, and also sometimes when it's important to stop you doing things that you know, maybe your body is telling you you shouldn't be doing at that particular time. So a coach is crucial, particularly if you have the luxury of having a good coach, which I always haven't, but at a club level particularly I've had good coaches around me, and they do make a massive difference. Best advice I would give to anyone who is kind of in a combat sport in that kind of environment is, first, I mean, I've said it before, but the penny drop for me, the most influential thing that anyone's ever said to me is around the lines of that hard work can beat, and often does beat, natural talent.